The sun was setting behind the jagged mountains of a barren planet, casting long shadows across the dust-covered landscape. The wind howled through the empty terrain, carrying with it the scent of metal and smoke. In the distance, the hum of energy weapons could be heard, but this was not the battle the human soldier had expected. His mission was simple: find the enemy's stronghold, gather intelligence, and return to his fleet. But as he moved through the rocky canyon, his path suddenly crossed with something far more dangerous than he had anticipated. He could hear her before he saw her. The sound of heavy boots crunching on the gravel and the sharp, steady breaths that cut through the air like a predator on the hunt. He turned a corner, and there she stood, a massive figure armored from head to toe, wielding a giant energy sword that glowed with a menacing red hue. Her alien features were unmistakable, sharp, angular features, and her eyes glowed faintly with a deadly intensity. She was a warrior, one of the fiercest the galaxy had ever known. The soldier didn't flinch. He had been trained for moments like this, but nothing could have prepared him for the sight of this alien fighter. She was taller than him. Her armor, gleaming under the harsh light of the dying sun, her stance ready to strike. "Human," she growled, her voice deep and filled with the power of 1,000 battles. "You are trespassing on my world. Prepare yourself." The soldier quickly assessed the situation. He had no backup, no reinforcements. It was just him and her alone on this forsaken planet. He gripped his blaster tight, steadying himself for what was to come. He had no illusions about his chances. He knew that this was going to be a fight for survival. She struck first. With a speed that seemed almost unnatural, the alien warrior lunged forward, her sword cutting through the air with a roar. The soldier barely had time to react. He sidestepped just in time, feeling the heat of the blade as it sliced past him, sending sparks flying. He fired a shot at her, but she easily blocked the blast with her armored arm, a shield appearing at the last second. She was fast, relentless, and her skill was unmatched. For what felt like hours, they fought. The soldier's heart pounded in his chest, his every move calculated and precise. He ducked, dodged, and fired, trying to find an opening in her defense. But she was too strong, too quick. Her sword cut through the air like a storm, each swing bringing her closer to victory. The soldier knew that he couldn't keep up this pace for long. But then, in a split second, everything changed. The alien warrior made a mistake. She overextended herself, swinging her sword in a powerful arc, but leaving her left side exposed. The soldier saw the opportunity immediately. He used his agility to slide to the side, grabbing a nearby rock and throwing it at her face to distract her. For the briefest of moments, her attention wavered, and that was all he needed. He moved with precision, launching himself forward and delivering a swift strike to her arm, knocking the sword from her hand. The warrior staggered, surprised by the sudden turn of events. Her armor was dented, and for the first time in the fight, she showed a sign of weakness. The soldier pressed forward, not hesitating, but careful not to make any fatal moves. He aimed his blaster at her, ready to fire. "Do it," she said, her voice surprisingly calm despite the situation. "Finish it. End me, human." The soldier hesitated. He had won, but something inside him stopped him from pulling the trigger. He had fought against enemies before, but this felt different. She wasn't just an enemy. She was a warrior, someone who had fought and survived countless battles. He saw the pride in her eyes even as she knelt before him, defeated. "Why?" the soldier asked, lowering his weapon. "Why aren't you fighting back?" The alien warrior's eyes glowed brighter, her chest heaving with each breath. "Because I lost. I have never lost before. I don't know what to do now." The soldier's mind raced. He had been trained to kill, to complete missions no matter the cost. But here, in this moment, with the warrior on her knees before him, something inside him shifted. He could end this now, or he could show mercy. His heart told him to show mercy, but his training screamed for him to finish the job. The warrior slowly lifted her head, her eyes locking onto his. "Please," she said, her voice softer now, almost pleading. "You have won. I offer myself to you." The soldier's brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" "Your life is mine, yes, but I'm not your master." "I offer my service," she said, her voice steady again, but there was something in her tone that hinted at vulnerability. "You have proven your strength, your skill. I will follow you. I will fight for you. Whatever you wish, human, I will do it." The soldier stepped back, his heart pounding. This was not what he had expected when he first entered this battle. His mind struggled to comprehend the warrior's offer. Was this an act of submission? Or was she testing him, trying to figure out what kind of leader he could be? His weapon still in hand, the soldier stared down at her. She had never asked for mercy in her life, and now she was offering him something far deeper than just surrender. It was respect. It was an understanding that only those who had fought on the battlefield could share. "Why?" the soldier finally asked, his voice low and uncertain. The warrior didn't answer right away. She simply looked up at him, her gaze unwavering. "Because you are worthy." The soldier looked out over the barren land around them, his thoughts racing. He had never been one for mercy, but this alien warrior had shown him something no other enemy ever had: humility. The battle wasn't just about winning, it was about understanding. "Okay," the soldier said, his voice firm but kind. "Then let's see what happens next." The silence between them was thick, almost as if the very planet had paused its spin to witness what had just unfolded. The alien warrior knelt before the human soldier, her pride and strength shattered by the unexpected turn of events. The human, still processing the situation, lowered his blaster, unsure of what to do next. The warrior's breathing slowed, and her glowing eyes locked onto his. The soldier had been trained to see enemies as threats, to eliminate them without hesitation. But here, in this moment, the warrior's vulnerability was something he had never expected. She was a powerful being, a killer who had known nothing but victory her entire life. Now she was offering him her service, her loyalty, something no one had ever dared to ask of him before. "Why?" the soldier finally asked, his voice quiet but firm. The warrior's gaze softened, but there was still a hint of fierce determination in her eyes. She had always believed that strength was everything, that those who fought and conquered were the ones who deserved respect. And yet, now she found herself in a position where the human soldier, someone she had initially underestimated, had proven to be stronger, not just in combat but in character. "You defeated me," she said slowly, her voice carrying a weight of honesty. "No one has ever done that before. I have fought countless battles against enemies of all kinds, but you showed mercy where others would not. You showed respect where others would have crushed me." The soldier felt a wave of confusion wash over him. He was used to enemies fighting until the end, to the brutal finality of battle. He had never been in a situation where mercy was expected. The thought of leading this warrior, of taking her up on her offer, seemed both strange and uncertain. "I don't understand," the soldier muttered, shaking his head. "You're offering yourself to me just like that? Why not keep fighting? Why not try to kill me again?" The warrior's face, hidden beneath the battle-worn helmet, seemed to soften. She hesitated, as if carefully choosing her next words. "Because I've learned that there is more to strength than just fighting. There is strength in knowing when to stop. And there is strength in recognizing the true worth of a warrior, no matter their race or background." The soldier raised an eyebrow. Her words were different from what he had expected. They were not the usual defiance or bitterness that came from a defeated enemy. Instead, they were thoughtful, almost respectful. It was clear that the warrior wasn't just offering herself out of necessity. She was acknowledging something far deeper, something he wasn't sure he fully understood. "Yet, I didn't ask for this," the soldier said, still unsure of what to make of her offer. "You don't have to do this. I'm not your enemy anymore." "You are my enemy," the warrior replied, "but not anymore. You are a leader, a human leader who has shown more honor than I've ever seen in my people. I am offering myself to you not as a slave but as a partner, one who will fight for you, stand by you, and never turn her back on you." Her words echoed in the soldier's mind. It wasn't the usual submission he had expected. It was more like an alliance, one forged through respect, strength, and shared understanding. But could he trust her? Could he trust that her words were genuine, that she wasn't simply playing some game to regain her honor? He looked down at her again, seeing the alien warrior for the first time, not as a threat, but as a person. Someone who had been through battles, victories, and losses just like him. She was no different from him, in that regard. "Why me?" the soldier asked, a trace of curiosity slipping into his voice. "Out of all the humans, why offer yourself to me?" The warrior's shoulders relaxed, her posture softening just a little. "Because I see strength in you that I have not seen in anyone else. You don't fight for the sake of domination. You fight for the sake of what's right. You may not know this, human, but I have seen many battlefields. I've faced enemies who fought with power, with rage. But you fought with purpose. You fought because you understood that victory doesn't come from brute force alone." The soldier stood in stunned silence. He wasn't sure what to say to that. His entire life had been spent in the military, trained to follow orders, to fight, to win. He had never thought about what it meant to be a leader. To him, leadership had always been about strategy, tactics, and survival. But now he was hearing something different, something that made him question his own understanding of what it meant to lead. "I didn't choose to spare you because I thought you were weak," the soldier finally said. "I chose to spare you because you're stronger than anyone I've ever faced. You're a warrior. But it's not just about the fight, is it?" The warrior nodded, her gaze steady. "No, it's not. It's about understanding the true meaning of victory. And I see that in you. I see it in the way you handled me and the way you showed mercy. It's something I've never seen before, and it's why I'm offering myself to you." The soldier took a deep breath, the weight of the situation settling heavily on his shoulders. He had never imagined that a defeated enemy would offer such a thing. A warrior's pride was something he had always respected, but this was something entirely new. "All right," the soldier said after a long pause, his voice quieter but firm. "I'll accept your offer. Not because I need you as a servant, but because I believe there's more to this. I don't know what this means yet, but we'll figure it out together." The warrior's eyes softened, and a small smile tugged at the corners of her lips. "Then we will begin." The soldier extended his hand, and the warrior took it without hesitation. The bond between them had been formed, not through force, but through respect and understanding. And as they stood together in the fading light, neither of them could have known how much their alliance would change the course of their lives, and the galaxy, forever. The days following the battle were strange. The soldier, now with an unlikely ally at his side, found himself constantly questioning the path he had chosen. The alien warrior who had once been his greatest enemy was now his companion. She had proved herself on the battlefield, and, though he still couldn't fully understand the offer she had made, he knew there was something different about her. She was not like the enemies he had faced before. At first, the warrior seemed to accept her new role without hesitation. She walked beside him, silent but alert, her eyes scanning the surroundings as they traveled across the barren planet. Her presence was both reassuring and unsettling. The soldier had spent so much of his life fighting alone or with fellow humans, but this felt different. The warrior's strength was undeniable, and yet there was something vulnerable in the way. She behaved now that she was not in control of the situation. One evening, as the two of them sat by a small campfire, the soldier watched her closely. The fire flickered, casting shadows across her face. She was no longer the fierce warrior who had fought him with everything she had. Now she seemed almost human. He noticed the way her shoulders relaxed when she wasn't on alert, how her eyes softened when she wasn't thinking about battle. "Tell me," the soldier said, his voice low, "why did you choose to fight? Was it just because it was your duty?" The warrior glanced at him, then looked away, staring into the fire. "My people, we are trained to fight from birth. It is who we are. We do not question the purpose of our battles. We fight because it is what we were made to do." "Made to do?" The soldier frowned. What do you mean by that? The warrior sighed, her voice distant. I was born into a family of warriors. My parents were soldiers and their parents before them. Our purpose is to protect our kind, to defend our planet. But it is not a life of choice. It is a life of expectation. The soldier thought about her words. He had always fought for something, whether it was to protect his people, his family, or simply to survive. But he had always had a choice. He had never felt like a soldier without a future beyond the battlefield. The warrior, however, seemed to carry the weight of her entire race's legacy on her shoulders. Did you ever want something more? He asked, his curiosity getting the better of him. The warrior hesitated. I didn't know there was something more until I met you, she admitted quietly. Before you defeated me, I never considered that there could be another way. But now, I don't. No, I don't know what my future holds anymore. Her words struck him. He had never imagined that his actions could have such a profound effect on her. She had been prepared to die in battle, to serve her people until the end. But now, she was offering him something more, something he had never expected from an enemy. She was offering her loyalty, her trust, and perhaps a chance for both of them to find a new path. I'm not asking you to give up your past, the soldier said, his voice steady. I'm not asking you to stop being who you are, but what I am asking is for you to think about what comes next. What do you want from your life now that the battle is over? The warrior looked at him, her eyes searching his face as if trying to understand his words. I don't know, she whispered. I don't know what I want anymore. I have lived my life in the shadow of war. I never had the chance to think about anything else. The soldier nodded, understanding more than he had before. He too had lived much of his life in the shadow of conflict. But now, standing beside this alien warrior, who had once been his enemy, he realized that there was so much more to life than just fighting. He had a future, and so did she. They both did. Then let's figure it out together, the soldier said with a soft smile. One step at a time. The warrior's gaze softened, and for the first time since their strange alliance began, she smiled back. It wasn't the smile of a warrior preparing for the next battle, but the smile of someone who, for the first time, felt hope. The following days were filled with quiet conversations and long hours spent walking across the harsh terrain of the planet. They discussed their lives, their cultures, and their beliefs. The soldier learned more about the warrior's people, their rigid code, their constant war, and their lack of freedom. And the warrior, in turn, began to see a different side of the human soldier. She saw not just a fighter, but a person. A man with a sense of duty, yes, but also someone who understood the importance of choice. As the soldier and the warrior traveled together, they became something more than just allies. They became friends, then something deeper. Trust was something neither of them had given easily, but in each other they found a kindred spirit. They were no longer just soldiers, bound by their respective duties. They were two people bound by the understanding that they could shape their own destinies. But even as their bond grew stronger, there was always the question of what would happen when they returned to the war. Would their alliance be accepted, or would the galaxy see it as a betrayal? The soldier didn't have an answer to that. But he knew one thing for certain. Whatever happened, he would face it with the alien warrior by his side. She had shown him a side of the galaxy he had never known, a side that wasn't about endless battles and destruction. It was about finding something more, something worth fighting for. And that, he realized, was the most important thing of all. The days passed quickly as the human soldier and the alien warrior traveled together. The air on the barren planet was dry, and the heat of the sun seemed to never let up, but they found a certain peace in the silence they shared. With every step they took, the bond between them grew stronger. There was no longer any tension between them, no fear or mistrust. They were, in a sense, learning to rely on one another. One evening, as they made camp for the night, the warrior spoke again. Human, she began, her voice steady but carrying a sense of urgency. I want to speak with you. The soldier, who had been tending to the fire, turned to face her. "What's on your mind?" The warrior took a deep breath and looked away. It was clear that she was gathering her thoughts. She seemed uneasy, almost as if she was preparing to say something difficult. "I know I have offered myself to you before," she said after a pause. "But I want to make it clear what I mean. I am not asking to be your servant. I do not wish to be at your command as a mere tool. My offer is indifferent. It is an offer of loyalty, of respect." The soldier's eyes narrowed, but he said nothing. He could sense that she was struggling with her words. The warrior continued, "I come from a long line of warriors, human. My people value strength above all else. We are taught from birth to fight, to kill, to protect. I was raised to be a weapon, nothing more. But now I see there is more to life than that. I see that strength can come from something other than battle." The soldier shifted uncomfortably. He had heard many speeches from enemies before, but this was different. The alien warrior wasn't just talking about surrender. She was offering something far more complicated, something he wasn't sure he could fully understand. "I'm not asking you to fight for me," she continued, her voice growing softer. "I'm asking you to allow me to stand by you, to help you. I have never known loyalty to anyone other than my people. But you have shown me something I've never seen before. You showed me mercy when I least expected it, and I want to repay that." The soldier looked at her in silence for a long moment, unsure of how to respond. He had never been in a position like this before. In his life, loyalty had always been a matter of duty, of mutual respect, or a result of shared goals. But the warrior wasn't asking for that. She was offering something more personal. She was offering her heart, her trust, and her loyalty in a way that felt different, genuine. "You don't owe me anything," the soldier finally said, his voice quiet. "You fought against me. You could have killed me, but you didn't, and you don't need to offer me anything in return. I wasn't merciful because I wanted something from you. I did it because I saw something in you." The warrior's expression softened. She had expected him to reject her offer, to tell her that her loyalty meant nothing. But his words surprised her. He wasn't just accepting her offer out of obligation. He was understanding it in a way that made her respect him even more. "I know I can never change what I am," she said, her eyes lowering. "But I can choose how I live. I can choose how I act. And I want to choose to stand by your side, human. I want to fight for something greater than myself." The soldier reached out and placed a hand on her shoulder, the weight of his touch a silent promise. "I'm not asking you to change who you are," he said, his voice firm. "But if you want to fight with me, I'll accept that. We don't have to be enemies anymore. And we don't have to be the same either. But we can stand together." The warrior lifted her head to meet his gaze, her eyes filled with something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in a long time. Hope. Hope for a future she had never thought possible. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about finding purpose, and in the human soldier, she saw a chance to do just that. She nodded, a quiet smile forming on her lips. "Then I will stand by you, human. I will fight with you, not because I must, but because I want to." Tlo, soldier returned her smile. He had never expected his life to take such a strange turn. But as he looked at the alien warrior, now his ally, he couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. She was no longer just an enemy to be defeated. She was a person, with her own desires, her own struggles, and her own purpose. They sat together by the fire for a while longer, not speaking, but understanding one another in a way that only people who had shared a fight could. The soldier knew that the journey ahead would not be easy. They would face enemies, challenges, and even doubts. But he also knew that with the alien warrior by his side, he wasn't alone anymore. And as the night stretched on, with the stars twinkling above them, he realized that the future no longer seemed so uncertain. Together they would find a new path, one that neither of them had expected. As the days passed, the human soldier and the alien warrior continued their journey across the desolate planet. The terrain was harsh with rocky hills and scattered boulders stretching as far as the eye could see. The sun burned high above, casting a relentless heat across the land. But despite the unforgiving conditions, the two of them moved forward, with purpose. The soldier had never imagined he would find himself traveling with an alien warrior. At first he had been wary of her offer, unsure of what it meant. He had grown up believing that enemies were to be defeated, not befriended. But as they traveled together, something inside him shifted. He had come to respect the warrior, not just for her strength but for her integrity. She had proven herself to be more than just a fighter. She was someone who, despite her past, sought something more, something beyond the violence and bloodshed that had shaped her life. The warrior, on the other hand, had never imagined she would find herself in this position. She had been raised to fight, to obey the code of her people. To lose in battle had been unthinkable, and yet, here she was, standing side by side with the very human who had defeated her. In his eyes, she saw not just victory but the possibility of change. She had offered herself to him, not out of weakness, but because she wanted to change her fate. She no longer wished to be just another warrior, lost in the endless cycle of combat. She wanted to fight for something worth fighting for. They had shared many conversations during their travels, each one bringing them closer. The soldier had learned about the warrior's culture, about her people's values and the rigid expectations that had shaped her life. In return, the warrior had listened to the soldier's own stories, stories of war, duty, and the weight of leadership. They were both soldiers, yes, but they were also more than that. They had begun to understand that there was so much more to life than just fighting. One evening, as the sky turned a deep shade of orange, the soldier stopped in, his tracks. He had spotted something in the distance, an abandoned outpost half buried in the sand. It had the look of something from a forgotten era, its structure crumbling and overgrown with weeds. The warrior noticed it too and raised an eyebrow. "That place looks ancient," she said, her voice carrying a note of curiosity. "What do you think it is?" The soldier examined the structure carefully, his mind working quickly. "Could be an old military base. Maybe we can find some supplies there. It's worth checking out." The warrior nodded, her eyes scanning the horizon. "We should be cautious. If this place has been abandoned for a long time, it may not be as empty as it seems." Together they made their way toward the outpost, their footsteps quiet on the dusty ground. As they approached, the soldier's heart began to race. He had been on countless missions, but something about this place felt different. It was as though the ruins held secrets that had been buried for years. When they reached the entrance, the warrior pushed open a rusted metal door with ease. It creaked loudly, and the soldier winced at the sound. They both stepped inside, their eyes adjusting to the dim light. The interior was even more decayed than the outside, with walls covered in grime and the air thick with dust. The soldier drew his weapon instinctively, his eyes scanning the room for any signs of danger. The warrior, however, seemed calm, her senses alert but steady. They moved deeper into the outpost, the floorboards groaning beneath their weight. In one of the rooms, the soldier found a set of old supply crates. Most of them were empty, but a few contained some basic provisions: water, rations, and a few weapons that looked long abandoned. The soldier felt a surge of relief. They would be able to survive for a little longer, but they couldn't afford to stay too long. "Anything useful?" the warrior asked as she approached. "Not much, but we've got enough to keep going," the soldier replied. "We need to move quickly. This place doesn't feel right." As they turned to leave, something caught the warrior's eye. A small, rusted terminal in the corner of the room, still partially functional. She moved toward it, her fingers brushing over the controls. It flickered to life, and the warrior's eyes narrowed as she read the data scrolling across the screen. "This was an old military outpost," she said, her voice tinged with disbelief. "But there's more. This place wasn't abandoned because of war or invasion. It was sealed off. For some reason, it was shut down and left to decay." The soldier walked over to her, his curiosity piqued. "Sealed off? By who?" The warrior shook her head. "I don't know. The records are incomplete, but there's something here that was hidden. Something important. Either of them wanted to leave any mysteries unsolved. The warrior moved silently beside the soldier, her sharp eyes constantly scanning the surroundings. She had proven herself to be more than just a fierce fighter. She was also an excellent tracker. Her senses were heightened, her instincts sharp. Every time they stopped to rest or gather supplies, she would check the area for potential threats. The soldier, though trained for combat, could not help but admire the way she moved with such ease and confidence. One evening, as the two of them sat by a small campfire, the soldier spoke first. "We've been traveling for days. We should have reached the next settlement by now. There's something about this place that doesn't feel right," he said, his voice thoughtful. The warrior nodded in agreement, her gaze fixed on the flames dancing in the fire. "I feel it too. It's as though we're being watched." "But by whom? And why?" The soldier's eyes narrowed. "It could be the same people who sealed off that outpost. They might be monitoring us, or worse, they could be waiting for us to uncover whatever was hidden there." The warrior didn't respond immediately, but her expression darkened. "I don't like the feeling of being hunted," she said quietly. "But we're not just running away from danger. We're running towards something, and I can't help but believe that what's hidden there could change everything." The soldier looked at her, his brow furrowed. "Do you think we can trust what we found at the outpost?" She paused, then spoke with a calm certainty. "I trust what I saw. It wasn't just an abandoned base, it was a place that was meant to keep something locked away, something dangerous enough that the galaxy wanted to forget it ever existed. We have to find out what it is, before it's too late." The soldier exhaled, the weight of her words settling on his shoulders. He had always been a soldier, following orders, fighting battles. But now, with the warrior by his side, he was starting to see the galaxy in a different light. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about uncovering truths, about finding answers that no one had dared to ask. The next morning they set off again, their resolve stronger than ever. The path they followed was narrow, winding through the dense forest. The soldier's thoughts were occupied by the strange discovery at the outpost, but he kept his focus on their journey. They couldn't afford to make any mistakes. As the day wore on, the forest began to feel darker, the trees thickening with every step they took. It wasn't the natural shade of the forest. It felt oppressive, as if the very air was growing heavier. The warrior's steps slowed, and the soldier noticed the shift in her behavior. She was alert, every muscle tensed, her eyes scanning the shadows. "Something's wrong," she muttered under her breath. Before the soldier could respond, a low, eerie hum filled the air, sending a shiver down his spine. The sound was faint at first, but it grew louder, almost as if it was coming from the earth itself. "What is that?" the soldier asked, his voice tense. The warrior's eyes widened. "It's a signal from the base. It's not just monitoring us, it's calling us in." The soldier's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean, calling us in?" "The base was designed to keep something contained," she said, her voice low. "But whatever was inside, it's not finished yet. It's waiting for us, and it's not going to let us leave without facing it." The soldier turned, his instincts kicking in. "Then we need to leave, now." But it was too late. From the shadows, figures began to emerge, strange, shadowy beings that moved with an unnatural speed. They were tall, their forms distorted, their faces hidden by dark hoods. The soldier's hand moved to his weapon, but the warrior stopped him with a sharp gesture. "Wait," she said, her voice low. "These aren't enemies." "Not exactly." The soldier looked at her, confused. "What do you mean?" "They're protectors," she explained. "Guardians of the secret that's buried beneath this planet. They've been watching over the base for centuries, ensuring no one finds out what lies beneath." The figures moved closer, their eyes glowing faintly in the dark. They seemed to radiate power, but they did not attack. Instead, they circled the soldier and the warrior, as though waiting for something. The warrior stepped forward, her posture commanding. "We're here to uncover the truth," she said, her voice clear and strong. We are not your enemies. We are here to understand, not destroy. The beings stood still, their eyes fixed on her. For a long moment there was only silence. Then, slowly, one of the figures stepped forward. It raised a hand, and with a strange, almost otherworldly gesture, the air around them seemed to shimmer. The soldier's heart raced. He didn't know what was happening, but he knew one thing. The galaxy was filled with mysteries they had only begun to unravel. The soldier and the warrior stood in the midst of the shadowy beings, the air thick with anticipation. The strange figures, towering and silent, surrounded them. There was an eerie calm about them, yet their presence felt overwhelmingly powerful. The soldier's hand hovered near his weapon, but he knew better than to act hastily. The warrior, standing beside him, had not moved an inch. She was calm, focused, as if she had encountered such beings before. The silence stretched on, broken only by the faint rustling of leaves in the wind. The soldier could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on them both. What was happening? What were these beings? And why had they appeared now? It was clear they weren't here to harm them, not directly, but their purpose was still unclear. Finally, the figure that had stepped forward raised its hand in a slow, deliberate motion. There was no aggression in the movement, but the soldier felt his heart race as the figure's hand passed through the air, creating a ripple that seemed to distort the very space around them. The warrior stepped forward, her voice steady. "We are here to learn, to understand. We have come to uncover the truth." The figure, its face still obscured by shadows, tilted its head, as if considering her words. The soldier looked at the warrior, puzzled. He could sense the strange energy radiating from the beings, but he had no idea what they were guarding or why they were watching them so intently. After what felt like an eternity, the figure spoke, its voice low and resonant, carrying an ancient weight. "The truth you seek lies buried, hidden by those who fear it. But beware. Some truths are not meant to be found." The soldier exchanged a quick glance with the warrior. The words echoed in his mind, and a chill ran down his spine. He had been trained to fight, to survive, but now he felt something more, a deep instinctive understanding that this was no ordinary mission. There was something bigger at play, something that stretched beyond the bounds of their understanding. The warrior took a deep breath, her voice resolute. "We are ready to face whatever lies ahead. We have come this far and we will not turn back." The figure nodded slowly, and for a moment, the soldier thought he saw a flicker of approval in its glowing eyes. It stepped back, and with a swift motion the other figures began to move, parting to reveal a path that led deeper into the forest. The air seemed to shift, the oppressive atmosphere lifting slightly, as if allowing them to pass. The soldier and the warrior hesitated for only a moment before moving forward. There was no turning back now. Whatever lay ahead, they had to face it together. As they walked along the path, the forest grew denser, the trees towering above them like silent sentinels. The ground beneath their feet was soft and the air smelled fresh, yet there was still an underlying tension. The soldier could feel it, a sense that they were being watched, guided, perhaps even tested. The further they walked, the more he realized that this was no ordinary journey. The warrior, too, seemed to sense it. Her pace quickened, and she moved with a quiet determination. After what felt like hours, they reached a clearing. In the center of the clearing stood a large, ancient structure, its stone walls covered in thick vines and moss. The building was old, much older than anything the soldier had ever seen, yet it exuded a sense of power, of something waiting to be awakened. "This is it," the warrior murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. "This is where the truth lies." The soldier's heart pounded in his chest as they approached the structure. He could sense something, an energy emanating from the building like a pulse that resonated deep within him. He didn't know what it was, but he knew that it was important. They stepped inside the structure, and as they did, the air grew colder. The walls were lined with strange symbols, some of which the soldier couldn't recognize. The light from the outside filtered through cracks in the stone, casting long shadows on the floor. The soldier's eyes adjusted to the dim light, and he noticed something in the center of the room, an altar of sorts, surrounded by ancient carvings. The warrior stepped forward, her gaze fixed on the altar. She knelt before it, her hands resting gently on the stone surface. The soldier stood beside her, feeling the weight of the moment. They had come so far, faced so much, and now they were standing before something that could change everything. The warrior closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. "This is where it all began," she whispered. "The project, the secret the galaxy has been hiding." The soldier looked down at the altar, his mind racing. What was she talking about? What had they uncovered? Before he could ask, the warrior stood up and turned to him, her eyes filled with determination. "There is a choice we must make now. What we find here will change the galaxy, but we must decide if it is worth the risk. We cannot undo what has been done." The soldier's heart beat faster. The weight of her words settled on him, and he realized just how much was at stake. They weren't just uncovering a secret, they were uncovering a force that had been hidden away for a reason. He met her gaze, his voice steady. "Whatever it is, we'll face it together. We've come this far, and we'll see this through to the end." The warrior nodded, her expression softening slightly. "Together," she repeated, her voice firm with resolve. The soldier stepped forward, reaching out to touch the altar. As his fingers brushed against the ancient stone, a flash of light erupted from the surface, and the room seemed to pulse with energy. The symbols on the walls glowed, and a deep hum filled the air. The warrior stepped back, her eyes wide with surprise. "It's activating," she whispered. "We've unlocked something powerful." The soldier looked at her, his heart racing. The truth was no longer a distant idea. It was real, and it was right in front of them. As the light grew brighter, they knew their journey was far from over. The secrets of the past had been unlocked, and the path forward would be more dangerous than anything they had faced before.